And good morning, everyone. 8:15. All of us snuggled up on one couch here because we have some special guests on the other couch. We're not going to reveal them quite yet. We want to go dive right into this story. So last week, I'm sure you guys have heard by now, Selena Gomez. We know her as the Disney and the ABC actress, also as the renowned singer. But we hadn't heard from her in a while about her new music. And then this picture all of a sudden surfaced on social media from her Instagram account. It was early in the morning. We were on Morning Blend, and I said, "Hey, Dina, Cornelia, are you guys seeing this picture?" Selena Gomez, who you see on the right side, 25 years old, revealed in this Instagram post that she just had a kidney transplant, and she got the kidney from her friend, fellow actress, again with the ABC, the Disney family, and she goes into how she's going to get back into her music, but she just wanted to let all of her fans know why she's been on a little timeout, because for her, she needed to take care of her health. And then she said, "This is all because of my lupus," and goes on, and she has revealed that she suffers from lupus, for a long time, but it was when we heard the news that she got a kidney transplant that kind of made us all go, "Oh wait, this is what happens with lupus?" And we had a lot of questions, but we had no expert to really help us. So we reached out, and Dina, you did some digging, and that's who we have today.
That's who we have today. So before we introduce them, if you have any questions, concerns about lupus, if you know someone who is going through this, or if you yourself has been, let's open it up to a dialogue, and let's also create a little community, because I think that this is something that's not often talked about. And after reading stories of those who are living with it, those family members who have relatives going through it, I think a community, outreach would be nice. And I know that there is one in Northern California. So now we want to turn to our guests. So I want to introduce you to two women today, both of which do have lupus, by the way. We wanted to say that off the top. So thank you both for coming in and being willing to talk to us. We have Janelle Brown, who is from the Lupus Foundation of Northern California, correct?
Yes.
Okay, Janelle, thank you so much. And then also we have Kiera Sherry Harris, who is also a lupus patient yourself. So you both were diagnosed about 20 years ago, and you've managed thus far. So first, let's talk with you, Kiera. Tell us about your circumstances when you first discovered this. What were your symptoms in the beginning?
My initial symptoms were like arthritic symptoms, so pain in the joints, in my hands, in my knees, in my hips. By the time I actually went to the doctor to figure out what was going on, I couldn't walk in the door. I just couldn't walk.
And was it immediate that they knew, oh, this must be something like lupus, or did you have to go through some serious tests?
No, I had to go through several different doctors and several different tests before they finally gave me the diagnosis.
And what was that time frame like?
It was about a year.
Wow.
So they diagnosed me with something called MCTD, which is mixed connective tissue disorder. And the issue with lupus is that it mimics a lot of other conditions. And so there's certain tests that say, well, if you have this particular marker, then it's probably lupus.
Manageable, obviously.
Yes.
But how has it evolved in the past 2 decades?
For me?
For you and for anyone else out there who, in terms of awareness, in terms of just
okay, and generally after it started as arthritic symptoms, then it started to involve my internal organs. So lupus, not from a medical perspective, but from a patient perspective, maybe it's just chronic inflammation throughout your body. It can be inflammation in your skin, inflammation in your joints, inflammation in your organs.
Wow.
And so when you have inflammation in your organs, be it your kidney, your heart, your brain, or your lungs, you're going to have some problems. And so over the course of my lupus, I've had both kidney failure and a stroke.
Wow.
And several problems with my skin as well.
So when we saw that Selena Gomez went through the kidney transplant, that's something you've also been through?
Yes.
Is this common?
It's more common than we wish, but yeah, and you can talk to the expert, but I think it's about 30%, mainly women of color, are diagnosed with lupus, but of course lupus affects all races. It just has a higher proportion of women of color who have it, and like 30% of those women will end up with what they call lupus nephritis, which is the term for lupus-involved kidney problems.
Okay. Well, let's turn it to the expert. Did you have a question, Cornelia?
Well, no, we're getting a lot of comments. So thank you, everybody, for watching. So right now, Holly Escobar says, my 13-year-old was diagnosed 6 months ago with lupus. Heidi Clee Mantel says lupus for 30 years. So as we start to talk about it, and as we start to open up the conversation, we're finding that a lot of people are dealing with this issue as well as were back in the day. Even before the Selena Gomez, maybe years ago, when I would hear lupus, I would think, like, is it just skin, or you weren't really clear. But now I feel like the door has really been blown open, and people are really wanting to talk about it and hear about it. So yeah, I think it's great. Thank you, and keep chiming in and keep leaving comments. If you have questions, let us know too.
Yeah. But at 13, that one really shocks me. Does it discriminate against age?
No, it doesn't. Most of the time, women or young girls are diagnosed in their childbearing years, and you know, unfortunately, that presents a lot of other problems for a young person as they're growing up and, you know, learning how to handle life just as a young person. But no, it doesn't discriminate against age at all, or, you know, race really. There are a higher proportion of people who get lupus that are Latina or African American, and it's mainly a women's disease.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you hear, you know, that the kidney transplant happened with Selena Gomez, is this something in your experience that you see happens to a lot of lupus patients? Is it enough to go as far as saying you can expect a surgery like this, or is that an extreme circumstance?
I wouldn't say it's extreme, unfortunately, because lupus just, you know, your immune system overreacts and it attacks good tissue and organs. It does happen, I think, to about 30% of patients. Myself, my story's a little bit different. I was diagnosed, fortunately, fairly quickly, only because my mother had lupus.
Okay.
So
And did anyone in your family have it prior to you?
No, I had never heard of lupus before, so
Wow.
I had no idea what to expect.
So would you go to the doctor more frequently than the average person because you knew someone in your family and your mother suffered?
Actually, no. I barely even would have a cold when I was growing up, so I was extremely healthy. I actually was diagnosed in my second year, or actually second quarter of college.
Oh, wow.
I was, you know, doing all the things a college student wants to do and having fun, studying, and I just wore my body out. And so my symptoms just came on all of a sudden.
So is it hereditary?
Yeah.
They say it is not. They say that there's a higher chance that if you have someone with an autoimmune disease or lupus, that you may develop another autoimmune disease. But you know, there's still a lot of research that needs to be done.
So Kiara, for you, lifestyle change. What did this
Major.
mean for you? What did you have to get rid of, to alter, to do differently as a result of all of this?
When I was diagnosed, I was self-employed.
Okay.
So I was on my husband's insurance policy, health plan, and then when we got divorced, being self-employed, I could no longer get health insurance because I had a pre-existing condition.
Wow.
Right.
And so I ended up closing my business, and I had to get a job because I had to get in a group health plan.
Right.
So that was a major thing. I also had 2 pregnancies during that marriage, which I could not carry to term, which was lupus related as well. And they said I could get pregnant, but you know, it's a high-risk pregnancy, and oftentimes you can't carry the full term.
I'm so
Now,
sorry to
and
hear
is
that.
it something, lupus, yes, because there's so many different ailments or other issues that come after that are involved, like we've been saying, like skin inflammation, like you said, other parts of your body, other organs deal with inflammation, sometimes achy joints. Is it something that you feel like over time is manageable, or is it just where you expect to just deal with this for the rest of your life?
Well, for me, the issue is knowing that they don't know the cause, they don't know the cure, and like Janelle said, there's still a lot more research you have to do. And we have a lupus support group here in Sacramento, that meets the second Tuesday of every month at one of the Sutter facilities downtown.
Is that open to all ages?
That's open. Yeah, we have pediatric members who have lupus who come to that group as well.
Okay.
And I would say in that group, we all kind of expect to have good days and bad days, and sometimes you're going to have some kidney involvement. Maybe you're having some other kind of organ involvement. I mean, there's people with lung issues. Some of the medication we take causes problems with your vision.
So is it?
So you have to take the medication
Right.
to manage the symptoms pretty much all the time.
And I don't want you to feel like either of you have to go into too much detail, but is it a go to the hospital and get something intravenously once a month? Is it just a pill?
Yeah,
I mean,
the day
what
in the
is-
life of someone suffering from
Yeah.
lupus.
It's
What is that
different
like?
for everyone.
Okay.
I have a friend right now who is in and out of the hospital all the time for symptoms that I've never had, and I
Okay.
don't know anyone who has. So everybody's
Different.
symptoms are different, and so this is another reason why I think doctors are sometimes reluctant to say, well, this is what it is, because it, with lupus, it could be something else, and like I say, it mimics other things. So you have good days, you have bad days.
And we have one comment that's interesting. Brenda Armstrong says, I have an autoimmune disorder. Am I at risk? Is it as simple as that, as saying, if I have one thing, then it must be lupus, or eventually it'll lead to lupus?
Well, unfortunately, if you have one autoimmune disease, oftentimes you may have another. I know specifically about lupus, obviously. People with lupus tend to have Sjögren's,
Sjögren's and Raynaud's is very common.
Yeah.
What are those?
Those are other autoimmune disorders.
And can you break down an autoimmune disorder? What exactly is that?
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
hold on 1 second.
everybody has an immune system.
Okay.
And your immune system fights off bad things, infection, and things like that. That it works to keep you healthy.
Okay.
Someone with an autoimmune disorder, their body overreacts and it attacks itself. So it attacks your own body. It attacks tissue, muscle, skin, organs. Most often, the autoimmune disease is named after which part of your body it attacks. So an autoimmune disease, systemic lupus erythematosus, that's a hard word to pronounce. It's systemic, so it can attack anywhere. But, for rheumatoid arthritis, for example, it attacks more of your joints.
Only.
Yeah, and so there are just different, and everybody with lupus has different conditions, different experiences, and different symptoms. So
We have a question
complex.
from Brenda Armstrong. Brenda, thanks for joining us and for sharing some of your comments as well. Brenda says, what kind of medication works for lupus? I have infusions done once a month. Does that sound familiar to both of you?
That is one of the approaches that they use, yes. Most of the people that I know, including myself, have been on steroids for, as long as I can remember.
Okay.
And that is one of the immune suppressing drugs that's used to control symptoms in lupus.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about lupus? What is something that maybe you hear that you want to correct, or something that you don't hear that you want to make sure is out in the public?
Most of the time when I tell people I have lupus, they say they've heard of it, but they have no idea what it is.
What it is.
So they just are clueless about it. And then when I tell them, then the next question is, well, can I get it? Is it contagious? They want to know,
answer is no.
should they be around me, or should they leave the room?
Right.
And no, you can't get lupus from anyone who has lupus. That is not contagious.
Got it.
Not contagious.
Yes.
We have someone here that says her name is Anishka Susik. Thank you for sharing this info. Autoimmune disease is skyrocketing younger and younger all the time. What has research shown the two of you, or I guess we can talk to the expert here. What has research shown you in terms of how close we are to a cure?
I love that you're calling me the expert.
The expert here, more expert than us.
I don't know if that's the case, but I can speak from my experience and what I've learned over the years. So our autoimmune disease is on the rise. It's hard to say. I think there's more information
There's
out.
more awareness, right?
More awareness and more information, and of course with the internet, which can be good or bad because there's a lot of misinformation. But I think that people are just more aware when something happens. They're more likely to first investigate on their own, and then oftentimes, go to a physician. So I think, people are more aware, definitely.
Is this one of those diseases where you feel, and I have a family member who's battling a different disease right now, but we felt like we needed to be her biggest advocate because she wasn't getting all of the answers up front because some of the symptoms were showing up as something else. Do you feel that as a person who is living with this and as a patient of this disease, you need to continue to do some research, to ask some questions, to get to the bottom of your own diagnosis? I mean, do you feel like this is something most doctors will say, you know what, it might be this, let's try this, series of testing to find out? Or did you feel like in your cases you had to go forward and ask for those?
Well, I would highly recommend anyone who is having some symptoms to definitely, check whatever resources you can to find out what it could be, and then to work with your doctor to do whatever test you think might be helpful for the diagnosis. I always think about this television show that used to come on called House. And he was a specialist in diagnosis, and every time he couldn't figure it out, he's like, oh, let's try, it must be lupus, let's try lupus. Because it's one of those diseases that mimics so many things, and then, but I think for myself as a patient advocacy is critical. If you're not walking in the door with some information that you can discuss with your doctor, you're really wasting your time. You need to know what the medications are, you need to know what the other possibilities might be, and you need to ask for the test you think you need. Now the doctor might say, oh no, you don't need that at all.
Sure.
And then there's always a second opinion. For me right now, because I have had my transplant, and I'm doing so much better. My symptoms are actually in remission.
Oh, good.
Because the drugs that I take to not reject my kidney also suppress the lupus symptoms completely. So my lupus is in remission as a result of that.
That's great to hear.
But I have a lot of friends with lupus who are still experiencing lots and lots of problems, and patient advocacy is the most important thing.
So it sounds similar when you say in remission to a form of cancer in a way, because when we hear remission, we don't necessarily hear that with anything else, whether let's say you had breast cancer, you're in remission, or colon cancer in remission. So is it safe or not safe to assume that it's a similar disease or a similar circumstance as a cancer?
It is not. It is not the same as a cancer, because lupus is, like she said, immune related, and it's just that your immune system is confused, and instead of just attacking, viruses, colds, flus, it's overacting all the time, so it's just attacking whatever's there. And it happens to be your kidney, it's going to go for that. If it's your ligaments, it's going to go for that. If it's your brain, if it's your heart. So no, I don't think it's like that. It's just you have periods when you're having flares and when you're not having flares.
So the typical.
So that's when I say you can have good days and bad days, and that's just how we talk about it as patients.
But from one day to the next, you could be in remission today, and then tomorrow, could you fall back into it?
No. You could have a flare. You could be in a state of flare, meaning you're having lots of symptoms on Tuesday, and wake up Wednesday and feel fine.
Because
but that's not
treatment.
necessarily a remission period.
Right. Yeah.
Remission, like I've been in remission for
years.
For years now, because of the drugs. But
does it still live in you?
yes, I am not cured. I would love to say that I am cured, but
So
I
you
am
still
not.
have lupus,
I
you're
still
in
have,
remission.
I still have lupus, but I am in remission.
Yes.
A drug-induced remission because of the drugs that I take.
So if you had
If
stopped those
if I
drugs.
take those drugs, it's going to be a problem
Right.
all the way around.
So the typical lupus patient, do they end up, I know there is no cure right now, and they don't know what causes it, so that makes it impossible to find a cure anytime soon, really, when you think about it that way. The
Well,
typical...
they're looking for a cure.
They're
There's
looking
lots
for
of,
one.
Lots of research is happening.
So do you expect, though, that when you're diagnosed with lupus, that you will take the medication for the rest of your life? If you find a medication that works for these symptoms now, different symptoms could pop up later, right? So the medications could change in months, weeks, decades, years.
Yes.
Well, and unfortunately, a lot of the medication has their own side effects. So you know, a medication that you have could start a whole other problem.
Right.
She was mentioning steroids. Oftentimes, prednisone is used to treat lupus as, you know, one of the medications. And prednisone, you know, can do all sorts of bad things to your
Over
body.
long-term use, and
Yeah.
we are long-term users.
Right.
Yeah. So specifically, you know, decreasing your bone mass, which leads you to be more susceptible to osteoporosis, osteopenia, fractures, things like that.
Cataracts. I have cataracts in both eyes as a result.
Really?
And I've had them since I was like in my late 30s.
Oh my gosh. Today, Lady Gaga came out, or this was over the weekend, but I'm hearing it today, that she's canceled now the European leg of her tour, her world tour, because she is suffering from chronic pain. And it's also said that in her she's in her early 30s, but she also has lupus. So that's where we're like, is this related? Is
Lady Gaga has lupus?
Yes.
She was on the list when we were doing
Yeah.
our research. Nick Cannon.
I know
Yes.
Nick Cannon does.
Nick Cannon does. Yeah. You know, there haven't been a ton of celebrities that have come forward to that either have lupus or have spoken about it. So I'm so happy when they do. And, you know, someone like Selena Gomez can do wonders to help increase awareness. So, yeah, I mean, there's just...
So for lupus patients who are dealing with this every day, to have someone like Selena Gomez, who is so well known,
Right.
come out and say, well, this is what's happened to me, it sheds light on what's happening with so many people.
And that's why we're having you on today, because when the story came across on Friday, we thought, wow, we all realized we didn't know someone directly who at least had shared enough of their story for us to know it full-fledged. And so that did spark our interest more. And so I know we're not trying to say that only Selena Gomez matters here, but it gave us the information to want to go further and to find out more about it. And so hopefully more people will come forward, just because the conversation needs to keep happening.
Right.
Yeah.
And we briefly touched on this, but we have a specific question from Lupita Barbosa. Can men get it?
Yes, absolutely.
They can.
Yes.
It's just not
There
as
are-
prevalent.
Absolutely. There are men that do have lupus. It's just not as common.
Right. Like the Nick Cannon we were talking about. Right.
Yes. And, you know, I do want to say, being part of the Lupus Foundation of Northern California, we do have a lot of information available. So, you know, I can give out the
Yes,
website.
absolutely.
Sure.
It's
We'll post it in the
www.lfnc.org.
Lupus Foundation NorCal.
Yes.
LN. Okay, got it. LFNC.
Yeah, so there's a lot of information there. We work really hard to be a great source of information and support. We provide you know, education and programs. We have a lupus buddy system, for example, that pairs you know, someone that's newly diagnosed with someone that is more experienced and has had lupus for a longer period of time. So,
And Janelle, we're getting a question from Kimberly Morgan. Are there any sorts of triggers that can onset lupus, like stress, surgery, etc., or does it just slowly come on? Do you know?
there are a lot of different thought processes. Again, there's still a lot of research that needs to be done, but you know, oftentimes there is a susceptibility that you may have, and something can trigger it and kind of flip the switch, so to speak. So, you know, speaking from experience, I was dealing with stress, a lot of stress, not sleeping enough.
Any college student.
Yeah, I mean, I was
time.
a college student.
Yeah.
So it's things like that. When you put a lot of stressors on your body and you're not taking care of yourself enough, that's when it can present itself.
And that was the same for me. I was a self-employed entrepreneur, running a business, and that was everything I did. So lots of stress.
Sounds kind of like what we do every day, ladies.
Yeah, it's just so important.
So if you, for
to
whatever
listen to our
reason, have
bodies.
some predisposition, that extra stress might be the trigger.
Got it.
Add it up. I wanted, because I know you were shocked when you said, "Wait, Lady Gaga has lupus," because we were all in that same boat when we heard that this morning or read that. I'm reading in 2010, Lady Gaga told Larry King that she tested borderline positive for lupus, but to be diagnosed with lupus, a person must have certain symptoms and a positive blood test for self-attacking antibodies. So I just want to get more clarification from you guys. If someone says they're borderline, do you have it or do you not?
I've never heard that.
I'm not
terminology.
sure what
That
she
means.
means by borderline. Oftentimes it is hard to get a diagnosis. There's not there's a blood test that can confirm that you most likely have lupus. There are actually right now there's a list of 11 different symptoms or health issues, so to speak. And if you have, I believe it's 4 out of those 11, then that's an indication that you may have lupus. So I think that there is so much that is unknown, and that may be the reason for maybe at that point she didn't really know, or she may
This
not
was
have.
7 years ago, and who knows,
Yeah.
since then.
Well,
Right.
we have another viewer too, Olga Ortiz Koopman. Olga, thank you. And if you can help me pronounce these again, you said they were Sjogren's,
Sjogren's.
and then Raynaud's?
Raynaud's.
Thank you. Very far off. She says that she has both of those two things and says, I also have really bad joint flare-ups. There's a time I'm all right and don't feel much pain and have more energy. I've also been told by a doctor I don't have lupus. Doctors just don't know, and it's true, some are hesitant about saying you do. Did you find that might have been your experiences at all?
I just think they weren't sure.
Yeah.
They just weren't sure. I
Okay.
don't think they were hesitant, because when there was one test that I remember, they said, it was an ANA, and I don't know if this is a marker for everybody, but I had a positive ANA, which was antibodies, and when they saw that was positive, that's when they said,
That's the official, okay, we're going to go ahead
that
and
was
say
for me.
For
I
you.
don't know if that's I don't know
Yes.
if that's something
But that was the
standard
turning
in the
point for you.
for my medical team.
Was it almost, I know it was probably not relieving in a good way, but relieving in a I'm not going to be as frustrated way when you had some sort of diagnosis at that point?
Oh yes, I was happy to have a diagnosis. I didn't know what lupus was, so it didn't mean anything to me at the time. I was like, oh, okay, that's what it is. And he said, oh, you're going to have to probably quit your job. And I was like, oh, I can't quit my job. I'm self-employed, so I don't give myself I don't give myself disability, so
Right.
I can't quit. So I just kept working, and but then it of course escalated.
Right.
And we should emphasize also that there's so many different degrees, so to speak, of lupus. So not everyone is as sick or has symptoms that they deal with on a consistent basis. A lot do. A lot of people do. It is something that you manage every day, but it is manageable, and so it may not be something that is so obvious, and it may also just be one of the symptoms, and that's how it manifests in your body.
Yeah, so there's many people with lupus just, live the same everyday life. They go to work like everybody else.
Yeah.
They have lots of lupus patients are able to have kids. Some cannot. So it's, you know, you can live with the disease and have a full life.
Absolutely.
And I think people needed to hear that.
You
Yeah.
can have a full, you can have a full life and do everything you think you want to do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Go ahead.
And if people want to get more information online, again, where should they go for resources?
So the Lupus Foundation of Northern California, the website is www.lfnc, Lupus Foundation Northern California. So lfnc.org.
.org, very important. We'll put a link in the comment section, so anyone who's watching now or later, if you're tuned into us, that will be in the comment section. Thanks
And again, Kiera, Sherry Harris, Janelle Brown, we want to say thank you so much for your insight and for sharing your stories. We really appreciate
and
it.
good luck.
Thanks for having us.
Fingers
Thank
crossed
you.
we'll find a cure and continue this conversation. We'll have you guys back on soon.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
Yes.
you. Have a good day, everyone. We'll see you at 9 o'clock. Dina has her show, and then tomorrow morning, 5 to 7, right here, we're on television. The Morning Blend, you'll find all three of us and the boys. We'll see you.